Welcome to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast, where you learn how to accelerate the growth of your online and offline businesses, profits, and personal income. Tune in daily to get the tips, tricks, and tactics that have generated over $100 million in online and offline sales. Now, here's your host, Anthony Flatt.
I'm Anthony Flatt, and you're listening to Business at the Speed of Sell podcast. Today, I want to talk about the difference between asking for a donation and selling a product. Now, I do a lot of volunteer work, and we sell a product in the volunteer work that I do with youth wrestling. I want to tell you a little story. I'm currently sitting in a hotel room, 7 o'clock in the morning. I've been up since 4 o'clock doing work, creating this podcast. And yesterday, I was in a business meeting here in a conference. Bobby Flay was our guest speaker at the luncheon, which was awesome. He did a great job, and it was very interesting to listen to his life story and how he's come about. But during that luncheon, one of my good friends who happens to be in this same industry was talking about a school his wife has just started. Now, his wife is a speech therapist, and she was my son's speech therapist, my daughter's speech therapist, and they've now started a school. And he's talking about the challenges of getting donations and raising money for their school. I had suggested to him that it might be easier for them to build a product based on what his wife's expertise in speech therapy is, and selling that product online to raise money for their school rather than asking for donations. And that made me want to, put out this podcast on the difference. Now, we have lots of nonprofit businesses out there seeking funding today. Everything from very large corporations like United Way and Red Cross, all the way down to, small independent nonprofit businesses that are just trying to do good in their community. And I'm the chairman of Team Georgia USA Wrestling. The corporate name is actually the Georgia Amateur Wrestling Association. And we're a nonprofit, but we've never went out and asked for funding or donations or corporate support or federal support. We've always raised our own money. And we raised our own money by building a product. Now, our product, or at least one of them, is running youth wrestling tournaments. We run these tournaments in high school gyms. The high school wrestling coach and team, as well as their youth wrestling team, usually are the host, and they put on the event, and then they make most all of the money. Team Georgia gets a little bit. It's a $15 registration, and Team Georgia gets about $1.50 or $2. And the rest of the money goes to online registration, credit card processing, and then $10 goes to the host school, and they also get the concession sales and the gate and admission sales. So when the spectators come in, they collect all of that money. And our tournaments generate for the tournament host an average between $3,000 and $6,000. Some of our tournaments generate $30,000, $40,000, but most of our weekend tournaments generate between $3,000 and $6,000. That's how Team Georgia exists as a nonprofit. We take in these revenues, we pay out to the schools, and our whole reason for being is to support youth wrestling in Georgia. And we generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $780,000 a year in revenue by running these events and hosting these events. And there's various other events, not just tournaments, but camps and clinics and other things and national teams. But we've never really went out and asked for donations and funding. We've always been what we call self-funded. And I think, to be honest with you, if you're working in a nonprofit today and you're looking to get revenue, I think it would be a lot easier for you to just build a product and sell it than it would be to just ask for a donation, because I think there's something psychological between giving your money and getting something immediately in return and giving your money and hoping that you get a return. And I think there's something even stronger when you're trying to sell a product that supports a good cause. So, if I'm selling a product and it's my product and the money comes to me, that's one thing. But if I'm selling a product and all of that money goes to drug prevention for middle school kids, well, that's completely different. I think a lot more people would buy the product just on the merits that it's supporting drug prevention for middle school kids than buying it just because I build a good product. Doesn't mean that I can build a shabby product. Doesn't mean that I can do something cut rate. Still would have to be a very high quality product, but you would find that more people would invest in your good works and your goodwill to help generate those funds. So if you have a nonprofit and you're struggling with funding, I don't have a silver bullet for you on how to get the government to give you a bunch of money or how to get a corporation to give you a bunch of money. But I bet you can create a DVD or an audio or a webinar that you can sell online. And I'd be willing to bet you that you would get a huge amount of return from that if you're supporting a good cause and you've got a community behind you.
If you have a question for Anthony, then head over to www.anthonyflat.com and leave him a voicemail message for a chance to have your question featured on the show. Thanks for listening to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast at www.businessatthespeedofsell.com.